Hello, I'm Sensei Alex Kakio, and the title of today's talk is Don't Give People Advice. But before we get into that, I'll remind you to subscribe and hit the notification bell. That way you'll be notified when I post talks in the future. Also, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, that'd be great too. And if you'd like to do a deep dive into Buddhist practice, I encourage you to check out my book, Perfectly Ordinary Buddhist Teachings for Everyday Life. A link to a sample chapter of my book is in the description for this talk. Now, I was doing training several years ago to become a certified breathwork facilitator, and the person leading the training gave us some advice that I'll never forget. He said that if we were doing the training with someone who became very emotional to the point that they started crying, the absolute worst thing we could do is offer them a box of tissue. Now, if they ask for tissue to wipe their eyes, obviously we should give it to them, but we shouldn't give it to them until they asked. The reason being that giving someone tissue when they're crying is a not so subtle way of saying, hey, stop that. Your emotion, your tears are making me uncomfortable, and I want you to use this box of tissue to make them go away. And then this, of course, breaks the trust between the facilitator and the student. It encourages them to bottle their emotions, and then they become less likely to share their experience. So a lot is lost there. And that's wonderful advice if you're a breathwork facilitator, but it's also true of just life in general. Especially if someone is struggling and we want to give them advice. It's always funny to me on social media if someone says, I'm sad, or I'm sick, or my back hurts. Immediately, everyone in their friend group becomes a doctor and a psychologist. And their comments are filled with people giving unasked for advice. Take a walk in nature, take lots of vitamin C, use ice, use heat, elevate. Try this recipe of my grandmother's secret soup that cures everything. And of course, we mean well when we do this, but what we're doing is very similar to the person who gives tissue to someone who's crying. What we're really saying is, your problem makes me feel uncomfortable. It reminds me that the world is out of my control, so I'm going to bring it back into control by telling you what to do. And of course, again, if someone asks for our advice, that's a very different thing. But if they don't, what we're really doing is treating them like a child, and that harms our relationship with them, and it makes them less comfortable and less willing to share. It's not good for anyone. So again, the first thing we can do if someone's struggling is simply to ask, would you like some advice? And maybe they'll say yes, and we can tell them about our grandmother's soup. Or maybe they'll say no, and we can just sit with them. But asking before we give allows us to protect the relationship and protect their feelings. The other thing we can do, if we really want to give this person something in their time of need, is to offer empathy and validation. So, empathy. I'm sorry this happened to you. That must be really frustrating. Not telling them how to respond, but just letting them know we understand that they're in pain. And then validation, giving them some encouragement to overcome this trial. You're sick, but you always recover so quickly. I'm sure you'll be okay. I'm sorry this happened to you. Let me know if there's something I can do to help. This is a difficult problem, but you're so smart. I know you'll figure it out. And as we do this, as we offer them empathy and validation in their time of need, what happens is we work and move with them from a place of compassion and wisdom instead of from a place of control. We're not trying to treat them like a child, we're trying to treat them like a fellow human being, a fellow Buddha. And as we do this, as we follow the example of Monju and Kannon, the bodhisattvas of wisdom and compassion, we manifest our own spiritual practice in daily life. We protect the relationship between us and this other person, and we end suffering for everyone involved. So that's the talk for today. I hope it was helpful. If you'd like to read articles I've written on Buddhist practice, you can do that at my blog, The Same Old Zen. And if you'd like to keep the conversation going, please leave a comment in the comment section below. I love hearing from you guys, and I promise I'll respond. So until next time, Amitabha.